want to thank so much the choir and the band for the wonderful music this morning. Let's thank them. And I will say that any UU church that has a rap in the service has a bright future. I also want to acknowledge, and all of us ministers will acknowledge this in our private moments, that great music will uplift a mediocre sermon every time.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Amen.
So that is my fervent prayer and hope this morning. Oh, I'm glad you brought up the word faith. So I'm going to make 3 brief statements. And I want you to check in with your visceral response to these statements. I am a person of faith. You are a person of faith. We are people of faith. So what did your body tell you? Some of you rankled inside as I made those statements. Others of you were so encouraged and uplifted that you would hear a UU minister acknowledge that we are people of faith, and then I'm sure there are visceral bodily responses everywhere in between there. Now, why is it that we might rankle at the word faith? I'm here to tell you that that has been unwarranted, because that word has been sullied and disfigured by people to the extent that folks like us who want to have faith that has all kinds of integrity, that integrates everything that we know and everything that we are. You know what the word means in the Hebrew and in the Christian scriptures? The root word that is translated faith simply means trust. So the faith question isn't like, what are all these metaphysical creeds that a bunch of old white men got together hundreds and hundreds of years ago and made up, and you and I are compelled to recite them and actually act like we believe in those and that they make some sense in the world today? That, my friend, is not faith. That would be more like belief, but I won't get into those distinctions this morning. But faith is simply, what is it that you trust most deeply in your life, in your bones, in your soul, in your body, in the deepest recesses of your being? What is it? Who are they that you trust the most in this life? And I can tell you this: you don't have to believe in a God to have faith. You don't have to be a theist to have faith. You don't have to be religious to have faith, because every one of us, there are things that anchor us, that we trust in, that actually order the way we live our lives. There's a man named James Fowler who wrote a very important work called Stages of Faith. Anybody ever heard of that book, Stages of Faith? I can tell you that was a book that literally saved my life. It didn't just save my faith, it saved my life. Because I grew up as a fundamentalist preacher's son who started preaching at the age of 11. And when I didn't believe all those fundamentalist creeds and statements anymore and doctrines, then I was lost. I was a lost soul. I didn't know what to do with my life. And of course, what did my father say? Son, you've lost your faith. And I learned to reply, oh no, Dad, I've expanded my faith. I understand now what it means to trust in something more than doctrinal formulations for the way I order and live my life. So, even in the Hindu scriptures, the word faith means to set your heart upon something. What is it you set your heart upon? Now I'm going to give you a really brief tour of Fowler's stages of faith. He has 6 stages of faith. The first 3 are the stages that children go through. I'm not going to go through those. But the 4th stage of faith is what he calls conventional faith. And by the way, he says this is the stage of faith that most people on the planet stay in the rest of their life. He actually calls it adolescent faith. But it's the stage of faith that most people stay in across the globe for their born days, because it basically, essentially is the cultural faith. It's the political faith. It's the economic faith. That people don't question these things. So he calls that conventional faith. And this is where religions have gone astray almost invariably, no matter what the religion is. Because for the most part, religions have become a sacred stamp of approval for the things that the cultural, political, and economic systems say should be the norm. Can you imagine that in America, if the churches would have actually stood up and been who they were supposed to be, which are transformers of society, not complicit with the power brokers of society, do you think that the institution of slavery would have stood? And why in God's name, if I can use that term here, why in God's name would people who claim to believe in a creator who said, I created it and behold, it is all very good. And oh, but except for these people whose skin are not white. You see, our place as people of true faith, we're not about the subjugation of people. We are about the liberation of people. And conventional faith does not believe that. Conventional faith says there are an elite, there are a ruling elite who will tell you who you are, what your slot is in society, and it's your place to just find your place and don't make too much noise or ruffle too many feathers. And by God, if ministers and priests and clergy and holy people buy into that, they are worth nothing. Nothing positive anyway. So the next stage of faith, the 5th stage of faith, maybe a third, maybe conventional was 3rd. Anyway, whatever the numbers are, the next stage of faith is basically where you're deconstructing the conventional faith. You go, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense, and that doesn't add up, and I looked at that, and that doesn't really make any sense, and how would that square with what I know about life right now? And this is where a lot of Unitarian Universalists are. See, we are busy deconstructing faith. Now, unfortunately, a lot of Unitarian Universalists stay there, and it becomes a reactionary faith. See, we have to do the deconstruction if we're going to move beyond the conventional faith, But if you stay there, it becomes a reactionary faith. Oh, he mentioned Jesus. Oh my God, that offended the hell out of me. Oh, excuse me, that offended me. I was wounded by that conventional faith. So, that's a necessary stage of faith if you're going to evolve into a very mature faith. But if you stay there, then you're just a cynic and a naysayer and a deconstructor. The next stage of faith, the fifth, is basically where you understand, you go back to the conventional faith and you see that it has mythic and metaphorical value for a broader picture of life. I'm using the term myth in the sense of Carl Jung and Joseph Campbell. So for instance, let's take, in conventional faith, the resurrection of Jesus was a literal event. Is that correct? Okay, I remember the first time I went into a congregational church and they started saying, I wonder if that was just a metaphor. What? I'm in a church? What kind of place is this? I'm going to get struck by lightning. So, but see, you can go back and you can say, yeah, I believe in resurrection. I don't have to believe in a literal resurrection of this one prophet named Jesus, but what about that unbelievable concept and religious and emotional truth of resurrection? That we are always in a process of resurrection. And the earth itself and the cosmos itself is always in a state of being destroyed and being reborn. What a large, mythical, beautiful truth that we can come to that gives us a liberating and mature faith. So when that fundamentalist Christian or fundamentalist whatever gets up and starts talking, yeah, we might get rankled a bit, but we're like going, you know what? I can see through all that literalistic language, and I can understand there is a broader truth being articulated there. And the final stage, the sixth stage of faith, is what he calls universalizing faith. And these are the people that live their life in the breath of the oneness of everything. See, these are the MLKs. These are the Gandhis. These are the Mother Teresas. These are the Maya Angelous. These are the Bob Marleys. These are the Barbara Jordans. You see, these are the people that get it. Now, you and I may get it every now and again, you know. We might have glimpses of the oneness, and then we go back to something else. You know, I don't flip that guy out because he cut me off in traffic, okay? But those with universalizing faith, for the most part, they live their whole life with that consciousness that everything is one. The Dalai Lama. You ever see that interview with the Dalai Lama and Bill Moyers? And there's a fly that keeps flying around the Dalai Lama. He's going, you're going to kill that fly? He goes, oh, no. Don't. I'd like to, but no, I can't do that. I believe in the oneness of everything. So briefly, that is Fowler's contribution. I think it's a wonderful contribution for us to understand where we are in our faith. And I hope and pray as Unitarian Universalists, we'll kind of be in more of that mythological, metaphorical, and even dipping into that universalizing faith, right? So here's what I want to say, is that as religious progressives, we have allowed in America, particularly in Texas, we've allowed one small sect of one religion that is well organized, that is bigoted, that is cruel, that is angry, to dominate the narrative of what it means to have faith. And we, of progressive faith, got scared and we decided we would just hide out and have our nice places of safe harbor where we could be with people who think like us. You see, there ain't nothing wrong with that. You know what that is? That's the starting point. That ain't the ending point. Of course we want to have safe congregations. Of course we want to be in a place where people have the same values as we are. But that ain't the end goal. The end goal is to transform society.
That's right.
It's not just to be in our nice little club with a few spiritual bromides every now and again and light a few candles and have some nice music and a little meditation. You see, we're not, I think, do y'all call this a sanctuary? You see, I think, I would prefer that instead of calling these places sanctuaries, let's call them launching pads. Yeah. These are launching pads. We're not here just to be safe. We want to be safe, okay? But if that's all we want to be, why? You see, we're going to have places like Alabama that have a vote that says, if you are a woman, you have no agency over your body. I'm going to force my religion onto you in a theocracy. And you guys are real cute over there protesting. But you ain't got no power at all. So we cannot, and let me just tell you, back in 2012, I want to thank your congregation. You were one of the 8 congregations who had the vision to be one of our founding charter members of the Texas Unitarian Universalist Justice Ministry. We now have 34, go ahead. Go ahead. We now have 34 congregations. So I want you to pick up some of our positive propaganda I have out there. This is our brochure, and these are some of our accomplishments. And it's on the front and the back, and I like to say that I had to make the print so small on our accomplishments to fit on one sheet. You're going to have to go to your eye doctor and go, Doc, my eye ain't long enough. I got to get a new prescription to read these accomplishments. And then finally, please take one of our tote bags for your contribution of $99.99. You can have one of these handsome tote bags. No, they're totally free. So please take those as they are still there. It is imperative that people of progressive faith, of true faith, organize, synergize, and mobilize. Okay, I can assure you that the people of ill will and the people who have said faith, who have disfigured the word faith, they're very well organized. And they want you to do what they say in the name of their God. Now, what is Unitarian Universalist faith? So what do we have in here? Maybe 100 people, 125. So if I were to ask that question, we probably had 300 or 400 answers to that, right? And so what I'm getting ready to say is just one minister's take, and you take it for what it's worth. I thought I would just try to wipe the slate clean and thought, if I could boil this down and distill this down into a little 3-minute elevator speech, what would it be like? So I want to offer you 2 concepts of what it means to have Unitarian Universalist faith. I love Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel. Abraham Joshua Heschel said, by the way, he's one of the guys that, I'm going to do a Bloody Sunday song here. He's one of the guys that got out of his, he was a theology professor up in New York. He got out of his office and he went arm in arm with King. You look up the pictures. He's the guy that looks like Moses. And I always say, now I know what Moses looked like. He looks like Abraham Joshua Heschel. But Heschel said this, that all healthy religion at its core is grounded in radical amazement. Radical amazement. I love that term. What are you radically amazed by? What gives you awe and wonder? What is it that takes your breath away? What is it that gives you chill bumps on your skin? Or the hair to stand back on your neck? Or to be in a zone where the time stands still? Heschel so beautifully articulates that healthy religion, at its core and at its center, is about radical amazement, radical awe, radical wonder. And the second concept I want to offer you is from a Unitarian humanist minister named Reverend Carl Reese. He was one of the signatories to the Humanist Manifesto back in the late 40s and the early 50s. This is a humanist now. Here's what he said. Sounds more like a pagan. He said, I looked around and I realized that everybody and everything on this earth is interconnected. It's all interrelated. And so therefore we are called to practice radical goodwill. Radical goodwill. So you might sum up Unitarian Universalist faith in 4 words. It's about radical amazement, and it's about radical goodwill. Now, does this make a difference in the world? You think it stands out in the world to be about radical amazement and about radical goodwill? Do you think it makes a difference in the state of Texas? Do you think that the 3 souls that we have in physical sanctuary in the Austin area and forming the Austin Sanctuary Network through our Texas UU Justice Ministry, do you think that 2 people, Hilda and Yvonne at St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church and Elidio at First Unitarian Church, do you think they would be there if we didn't have radical amazement and radical goodwill? Oh, well, that goes against ICE. As if ICE is some God-ordained institution. We can't do that. What if the law doesn't like it? Well, has any liberation of people ever come about because people question the laws that were unjust? You think that over 30 war on women bills would have been killed at the legislature? Maybe I shouldn't use the word killed. What's a nonviolent term? Destroyed? Defeated? There you go. See, we got to count on our youth here. Over 30 bills, war on women bills, because of people of radical goodwill. Or do you think we'd have been able to flush the bathroom bill out of Texas during our last session had it not been for people of radical goodwill, of faith? So, here's what I want to do real quick. Now, this is a whole other sermon, but I aspired to create a UU megachurch in Round Rock, Texas. I was mentoring with a megachurch pastor for about a year and a half. He's a great soul. And he said, Chuck, as you are establishing your congregation, continually ask yourself this question. I want to ask this of this Corpus Christi UU congregation. I want to hear some of your responses. If this congregation, if this faith community were to disappear tomorrow, would people even notice? And the second question is, what is it that this community of faith brings to Corpus Christi and Nueces County that would not be here if you were not here?
Love.
Love, okay.
Acceptance.
Acceptance, let me hear it.
Hope.
Hope.
Freedom.
Freedom.
Joy.
Joy, there you go. Tell me some specific things that you guys are doing. Say it. Safety.
Fundraising.
Fundraising.
A political minister.
I'm all for that. I'm expecting to get a check when I finish this. Say it again.
A political minister.
Okay, a political minister. Are there talent? Are there any concrete ministries that you're doing in the community that people say, wow, that's gone now that the UUs are gone, that's gone?
Marriage equality.
Marriage equality. Thank you. Who else? Okay. Cleaning up the beach. Anything else? Yes, ma'am. Okay. LGBTQ support. Yes, ma'am.
Disappear, you better get along with other people so that it'll be carried on.
Okay. All right. We all just.
Think you're the only one.
We'll just all become Presbyterians. Agreed. Of course. Yes, ma'am.
The first time I had heard Unitarian Universalist, I work with the Interfaith Welcome Coalition in San Antonio.
Yes.
And our co-moderator is UU.
Yeah, that's right. Grace, Mary Grace.
But it's been, yes.
Mary Grace Kettner, yes.
To know so many people of so many different religions.
Absolutely.
All working together for the same thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I want to be clear. I'm talking to us. There are so many other wonderful expressions of faith that we are in partnership with and in coalition with, and people that are not of faith but are of goodwill that we work with to do transformative work. So I'm going to encourage you. I'm going to encourage your minister. I'm going to encourage your board. I'm going to encourage every one of you to continually ask this question, because I think it is one that gets us more clear about our mission and our purpose for being here. If we were to disappear, would people even notice? And if we were to disappear, what radical goodwill would not be happening for us having dissolved this congregation? I'm going to close with a sentiment from Reverend Theodore Parker, who was a very well-known Unitarian minister around the time of the Civil War. And I've always said that genius is knowing who to plagiarize. So the president of that time quoted, and I want to just say this, for the president of that time, who had this long black hat, to quote a minister. See, he just didn't do a Google search and find obscure Unitarian quotes that I can use in the Gettysburg Address. You see, it tells me that that minister was extremely well known, that the president would know his sermons well enough to plagiarize and use these words. And they go like this: that our sacred duty is a democracy, an organization of a government by all the people, for all the people. I missed a part of that, didn't I? All the people, for all the people. Of all the people, thank you. See, I'm not a very good plagiarist. Of the people, by all the people, for all the people. That's what Reverend Theodore Parker said. That's our legacy. That's our spiritual DNA. And then I love the way he closed it, almost in an offhanded way, and it gives me chill bumps every time I say it. For shortness' sake, I will call it freedom. Amen.